AI role of education and training. Our speaker for today is Mr. Abhinav Prakash Singh, the National Vice President of BJYM. Before advancing, I would like to go over the guidelines of the session today. Please try to keep your videos on during the session. Please keep yourself muted during the session. You can unmute and ask questions to the speaker during the question and the answer round. However, if the speaker allows you to ask the question in between, you can do it, but it's up to the discretion of the speaker. The amicus curiae is the brainchild of several legal luminaries and eminent personalities across the globe and the country. The amicus curiae is a dream online platform which aims at proliferating legal knowledge and providing an ingenuous understanding with cognizance of various fields of law to make sure that legal knowledge and experience penetrates to every nook and corner of the ever growing legal fraternity. Through ambitious and studious legal brains across the country, the amicus curiae aims at providing valuable contribution to contemporary legal issues along with the development in the omnipresent field of law to the masses. We are also registered under the Indian Partnership Act 1932, the Ministry of MSME, Government of India, and are also an ISO 9001:2015 organization. The Amicus Curiae is presently the eighth largest legal website in India. We are connected to more than 20,000 law students from across 80 plus law schools in India. Our speaker today, Mr. Abhinav Prakash Singh Sir, is the National Vice President of the BJYM, the youth wing of BJP. He oversees the BJYM unit of the state of Haryana. He runs the experiential learning training module for the BJYM cadre named Sushasan Yatra. Under it, district and state level challenges this governance and developmental work at the ground level and familiarize themselves with the local politics of and culture. He is also in charge of the BJYM magazine, a platform to engage with college students, professionals, and young writers on the contemporary issues. Additionally, he is a part of the central team of the Samajik Samvad, a focused outreach of the BJP to Dalits and other marginalized communities. As part of the Samajik Samvad, he has worked extensively in the state elections of Uttar Pradesh, Uttarakhand, and Punjab. He is also an assistant professor of economics at Ramjas College, Delhi University. He taught economics at Shriram College of Commerce, Delhi University earlier. He is also a bilingual columnist in English and Hindi at Hindustan Times, Dainik Jagran, Swarajya Money Control, Indian Express, etc., covering socio-economic, political, and governance issues. He is also a TV panelist at the Rajya Sabha TV, DD News, etc. He is a member of the advisory board for the National Library, Kolkata. He was the Raisina Young Fellow at the Raisina Dialogue 2019 and organized by the Observer Research Foundation and Ministry of External Affairs, Government of India. He is also a young leader at the France India Foundation's Young Leaders Program 2023. It's an absolute honor to hear from you, sir, today, and I wish everybody an amazing and informative session ahead. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Amicus Curiae and Rupam. At the outset, I apologize. My throat is not in a best of the conditions, so I won't be able to speak loudly. But I hope I'm audible to all of you. Okay, thank you. So, thank you for organizing this very important session, which is basically on the one of the themes of the Y20. You know, the Y20 is the youth engagement group of the G20, and I'm an advisor to the Y20. So, one of the themes of the Y20 is the future of work. Now, the title itself, as you can see, is a very interesting. What the future work will be. This is not about what is the skills required for the future work. The topic is future of work. Do we really have the future of the work as we know it? If you go to your parents' generation or grandparents' generation, the work was defined in a very neatly. Work was very neatly defined. You get an education in the college, you get a graduate degree, then you get a job either in the government sector or in the private sector. You work from 10 or 9 in the morning till 5 in the evening. You come back home and that was all, right? So, and you got pensions after you're retired. You got other benefits from the government, medical benefits, pension benefits, and so on. But our generation and your generation, especially the people who are 10 years younger than me, maybe. So you have already noticed that these stable jobs have started disappearing. It is, you look at the job profile of your colleagues, your immediate seniors, very few have the stable jobs of 9 to 5 like your parents had or your grandparents had. And this is resulting from a very massive technological disruption which is changing how the people engage with the economic production. Now, as you know, that economic production is what drives the social structure, it drives the political structures, and so on. So now, what is happening is that we are at the beginning of what is called the fourth industrial revolution. Now, if I may ask you people, what was the first industrial revolution? Anyone in the audience? Anyone in the audience who has any idea about the first industrial revolution? When did it happen? Why did it happen? Where did it happen? No? So as you know, the first industrial revolution happened in the Britain, right, the United Kingdom, and a very simple technological advancement that was the steam engine changed the world as we know it. You know, when the steam engine came into existence, the big machinery, the factory system came into existence, and everything around the world just changed. That first industrial revolution allowed the Britain to conquer half of the world basically. Now, what happened once you have the steam engine, you could now have railways, you could have big factories, the production process changed, the factory system. What is factory system? Producing at the mass level. Now, of course, we were having economic production of different goods and commodities before industrial revolution, but those are basically artisans or different kinds of large communities hand manufacturing the things. Now, once the first industrial revolution happened, you have the rise of the factories and the modern industrial urban centers. You suddenly have the rise of the mega cities, the larger cities, the transportation changed, how you traveled across the world changed just because of this simple technological innovation that was the steam engine. The second industrial revolution came into existence when we mastered what is called the electricity. Now, that was in the 1900s. That when the in the beginning of the 1910 20 when we started applying electricity to the production process. Now, you cannot imagine a world without electricity. We are connecting to each other through this Google Meet is because we have electricity. Now, electricity again changed everything as we know about the world. It also changed everything as we knew about the work. Now, the night shifts can happen, the days become longer. The how you communicated, the communication technology played a very important role. Different kinds of telegrams and different kinds of things which started coming into existence, and that changed. The radio changed everything. The third industrial revolution happened. Any guess? Third industrial revolution. What may be the third industrial revolution? Information and communication technologies, the computers, the internet, the mobile phone. That was the third industrial revolution that also changed. You can imagine the economic structure and also the way we organize our society, the way we communicate, the way we do our politics, and so on. Now, in fact, I have asked, sometime I really asked the senior political leaders, those who were working in the 80s and the 70s, that how you people did politics when there was no WhatsApp, right? When there was no mobile phone, how you communicated, how you organized your political rallies, how you connected with the people, and so on. So, that the computer and the mobile phones, the internet, they completely transformed everything as we know it, from society to politics to the how the production is carried on. The Flipkart and Amazon are very good example. That the just-in-time manufacturing. The earlier the people were producing or manufacturing commodities, they were keeping them in the inventories. Now inventories are at the lowest level in the history because the production happens when someone places the order. So that kind of thing has also happened. But now in the 21st century, in the second decade of 21st century, We are at the beginning of much more disruptive industrial revolution that is called the fourth industrial revolution, and that is characterized by the artificial intelligence, biotechnology, 3D printing, nanotechnology, and different kinds of emerging frontier areas in the technology. And you can imagine that is going to cause lots and lots of disruption. Now, as you know, the 9 to 5 jobs are disappearing because there is fragmentation of the production process. Earlier, if there was a production, let's say you were an employee in a company or a factory, you had to be present at the site of the company, in the offices of the company. Or if it were a manufacturing job, you have to be there in the factory towns or the industrial towns. And the production process is happening in that manner. Now, because of ease in the information and communication technologies, transportation, logistics, now equally enabled by the modern, very smart softwares and different things, the production process itself has fragmented. Now, what does it mean the production process has become fragmented? Now, earlier in the 70s or in the 80s, if you were buying a Boeing airplane, or you were buying some, let's take a very good example of the Rafale, right? So if you were buying a fighter jet plane from the France in the 1970s, like you bought Mirage, uh, 70-80% would be made by the Tosser, right? When you go and buy Rafale, hardly 30 to 40% of the Rafale is made by the company from which you are buying that fighter plane, because you will find some one component is being made in Germany, another component is being made in maybe somewhere in UK, another thing is being made somewhere in Turkey. There will be hundreds of components being made in different parts of the world, and they are brought together by the main company, which is Dassault in this case. In this case, and that will integrate with their core technologies and give you a fighter jet plane. Same is the case with the cars. Same is the case with the Boeing airplane. The production process has fragmented because of technological advances, which have made the intra-industry trade much more easier, cost effective, so that each component can be produced in the areas where they can be best produced, or where you have the better manufacturers, or where you have the comparative advantage, as we call in the field of the economics. Now, that has created a problem because the manufacturing jobs have started declining in many of the places because there's a fragmentation. Suppose if you were Germany, which is a very highly industrial economy. Now, when this kind of production process is taking place, suddenly you will find that lots of manufacturing is taking place in China, lots of manufacturing is taking place in Vietnam, lots of manufacturing may now take place in India. So it is leading to disruption in the production process. Let's say for in this case for Germany, where manufacturing jobs will decline, which is like the stable 9 to 5 jobs are declining. What you're having is more fragmentation of the jobs market, and therein you have the rise of the gig economy. That you don't really need, you know, the as a company you don't really need permanent employees. You don't need the long-term employees. You can simply outsource the work. Now, suppose if you're a technological company which is working in software design or different kinds of development, you can hire 100 different people from across the world. You do not even need a physical office. You do not even need that permanent employee. You can work, you can outsource work on a project to project basis. And this is what lots and lots of people are doing these days. You will see them around yourself that lots of people are now engaged in the gig economy. Now that is going to be a major challenge for the youth of the I say across the world, but also for India, because India, as you know, is the youngest has the youngest population. The problem in India is of a different magnitude altogether. You see, when China was industrializing in the 70s and the 80s, because Chinese were smart enough to do economic reforms in the 1980s itself. The then Xiaoping, who initiated these market reforms after Mao, and especially after Tiananmen Square massacre, the Chinese Communist Party came to an informal social contract that full freedom in the economic realm will open up the country to the private sector, but no freedom in the political realm. You see that China has really transformed. But in the 70s and the 80s, when Chinese were industrializing, the production process was very simple. The production processes of manufacturing cars or industrial goods were very simple. In that case, the Chinese could do what they could do was to pick up the farmers from the countryside, give them some basic education and training, and put them to the work in the factory. Because the production processes were not very complex, it was easier for the Chinese to do this transformation from agriculture to the industry. Now, come fast forward to 2023. If you go to any manufacturing company today, the let's say you take the example of what is this called Maruti. Maruti has a plant in the near Gurgaon in Manesar. 20 or let's say the 10, 15 years back, not even 20 years back, if you were to go to a Maruti factory, you will find thousands and thousands of workers working on the manufacturing process, right? Now, if you go there, you will find most of the work is automated, right? Most of the robots have really replaced the workers to a large extent. And the workers who are working there, they also need to work with complicated machineries and softwares and production processes. Which means that for India in 2023, the task of shifting your agricultural workforce, where you have the largest number of people engaged in economic activities, and you know that we often hear that India किसानों का देश है, farmers का देश है, which is all lies because the farmers constitute less than 10% of India's population. The majority of the people, even in the villages, are landless laborers or the artisan people. Right? So this narrative of India that India is the country of farmers is actually not empirically true. Around 8% of the people in India are the farmers, and out of 8% is only 2 or 3% who actually can survive on the agriculture. Others are small and marginal farmers. So these people are really trapped in the agricultural sector because the marginal productivity is almost zero. There is no prosperity in that area. You need to shift them from agriculture to the industry. But how do you do that? Because since independence, we have not been able to invest massively in the education. In fact, the most celebrated 5-year plan of India, that is called the Mahalanobis Plan or Nehru Mahalanobis Plan, actually de-emphasized the primary education for the masses. You can go and read the plan. They were of the view that heavy industrialization is more necessary than spending on the education for the countryside. And this is what you see, that India in the 50s and the 60s was building IITs, but we were not really building primary schools in the countryside. Now that has created this huge problem that majority of our population does not have access to good education till today. It's a legacy problem, but it's also a policy problem. Now those people who do not have good education, how do we expect them to find a job in the modern factories, which requires technical know-how, which requires working with complicated machineries, which will require in 5 to 10 years working with really virtual intelligence, if not artificial intelligence? Now that creates a problem for a country like us that we might actually be trapped in this stagnation because the production process is becoming much, much more advanced. Your people are unable to find jobs in those kind of sectors. Now, this is what the Y20 is really focusing on, that what can be done? What is the proposal that the youth of India and other G20 countries and other observer countries can really make to the governments of the world that how do we go forward? It also creates the problem like you see the gig economy. If you were earlier working in a company, you had your employees benefit, the pensions, the medical care, and so on. The people working in the gig economy have none of it, right? So there's also the question of social security. There's also the question of income security. That how do you ensure that the people who might be out of the job in the future, and trust me, a large number of jobs are really threatened by this thing. I hope lots of you must be using Chat GPT. ChatGPT is just tip of the iceberg. It's nothing. It's just like computers in the early 90s. Look at the laptops you have, they're much, much more powerful. Now imagine if those kind of technologies are coming and they are really there, out there. Even the high-end jobs are being threatened. Forget about the lower-end jobs. Now, what do we do about it? And it's a very challenging thing. Really, there are no real answers to this thing, except that we need to be optimistic that we will survive and we will cope. Because when the first industrial revolution happened, in the 1700s, there was massive social unrest. There was massive unemployment because the destruction of the traditional industry. I'm talking about the Britain itself, not India. Threw lots of people out of job. And there was this group called Ludics who actually went around destroying factories and the machines, saying that these machines are snatching away our jobs and we are being rendered unemployed and thrown into poverty. And that kind of unrest always happens when you have the new technological disruption. In fact, Britain, it is interesting to note that Britain has to employ in that time period during the first industrial revolution more soldiers on the ground in the Britain than they employed in the in the war against Napoleon. Now you can understand the scale of the social unrest that technological disruption can cause. When the electricity came in, the modern industry came in, the Ford model of assembly line production, that also caused lots of disruption. The computers and the information technology, as you know, has caused deindustrialization across lots of countries in the Western Hemisphere. America is a good example. Detroit is a ghost city. It used to be the hub of the car manufacturing. Now, the fourth industrial revolution can also threaten the global pattern of the production. So, what is the global pattern of production as of today? That the high-end creative jobs or financial jobs or technological jobs are concentrated in the Western countries. The manufacturing, the lower end manufacturing is concentrated or has been outsourced to the third world countries like China is no longer a third world country, but let's say in the 70s, China, Vietnam, Thailand, and now lots of investment is coming into India. You must be reading them in news that lots of global manufacturers are shifting their manufacturing like iPhone or AMD to India. Now, when you have the fourth industrial revolution and greater automation and artificial intelligence and 3D printing, the one advantage that India has or the Asian countries have is that you have a cheap labor and abundant labor that becomes redundant. Now, if you have 3D printing, if you have the robotic production, the production being done by the robots in a much more sophisticated manner, there is no use of your cheap labor that you can supply, you can offer in the country like India. What may happen is that there may be a reversal of this trend over the last 40 years. The investment is coming from the Western countries to the Asian countries, on which India is now betting, hard that we can attract this global investment productions, inside India. That might actually reverse. That Germany and America and France might say, okay, I mean, we have greater advantage in working in a technological intensive environment. We don't need cheap labor to cut down cost of production. We can simply have the robots working on it. We can simply have 3D printing if that advances in the future. We can really employ very cutting edge modern technologies which may can't even imagine in down 20 30 years, which may cause a reversal of the financial flows or the flow of investment from India or other countries to the Western countries, and that will create a lots of problem. The students who were in the school in the 1990s or in the late 80s, they really had no idea, no clue in what kind of industries they might be working in 2023. You know, all those industries that we see today, your Bjym, your Ola, Uber, Amazon, AMD, and all these kind of things, these jobs did not even exist 20 years back. It's a disruption in the last 20 years. So you people who are young people in the classroom today, really after 20 years, what kind of job you will be doing, that is uncertain. It is difficult to predict because technological disruptions are really difficult to predict. In India, that will cause one more challenge. I just forgot to mention it. India has a very legacy problem of the caste inequality, and that is a big problem in India because the access to education, the access to the social capital, to the educational capital, is heavily influenced by the caste. So what happened in the last 100 years, and this is often really not noticed, when the India became independent and you started, even before that in the 1930s, when your reindustrialization started in the World War, between the period between the World War One and World War Two, uh, what happened that the new kind of jobs which are coming in, the industrial jobs like the factories and different kinds of thing in India, the first one to move into those jobs were the people in the villages who had the better access to education or resources to invest in education. And those were basically the upper caste or the dominant, what you call, dominant caste is more appropriate because not all of them were traditionally upper caste. uh, they could move to the urban center, to the modern economic structure that was emerging. Whereas the people who were from the scheduled caste or the backward communities, they remained where they were. You see, you if you imagine this point, if you understand this point, this is a very major point that is often missed in the discussions. When India's modern economic growth started, the first one to move from agricultural economy, from the villages to the cities, and the modern industry and the modern jobs, were the people who were the dominant, who were coming from the dominant caste in the villages, because they had access to education, they had the resources to invest, they had the resources to sustain migration to the cities, all those kind of things. Whereas the people who were the lower end of the social spectrum, they remained where they were largely, and that created this very huge income gap between different castes in India. Now, even in the villages, there was this hierarchy, social hierarchy, but all of them were really trapped in that village. And how much differences can you have beyond, if you beyond, those usual kind of feudal rules of discrimination and so on. But now the difference between the upper caste and the backward caste and the scheduled caste was now also overlaid with the difference between highly productive modern economic production process and the older lower end agricultural production process where the larger population is engaged. Now that social gap led to lots of problems in the 60s and the 70s. After independence, you have the rise of different kinds of movements, the Naxalite movements, because people started realizing that we have not really benefited after independence, that the Congress party was there in power, the dominant party. There were lots of anti-Congress movements we started. Very good example in the 1970s and the 80s. You have BSP, SP, RJD, Janata Dal. They really destroyed Congress party, and that time period was also very unstable. You have the rise of the radical movements, even Naxalite movements in certain parts of the country, violent movements. Now, again, once you have this problem, which is again threatening your social order, that if you really have the fourth industrial revolution having full impact on India, where will these masses go? The gap between the people who are in the cities and the people who are in the upper end of the social hierarchy and the people who are at the lower end of the social hierarchy is going to widen, because they will simply find it unable to catch up, because the amount of investment in education required, the amount of resources which needs to be invested, is simply beyond the capacity of the majority of the Indian population. Now, that widening of the socio-economic gap can also lead to political instability that can also threaten the entire thing, the entire social order, the entire political order, even the national security going forward. So this problem, or this issue of coping up with the fourth industrial revolution, is not just about jobs, the future of work. The future of work, the employment, economic security is also linked to your social structure, your social stability, your political stability, and we really don't know how it is going to play out in the future. What we can do is to prepare by training our people, by investing more in education, by investing more in, making your labor force, making your students, making your youngsters future ready. So the focus should not be on making them, pass some examination or forcing some syllabus down their throat. The focus should be on giving them enough capacity to adopt, right? More focus on the basics of education, like new education policy is trying to do now. More focus on mathematics, the more focus on logic, the more focus on the capacity to learn, rather than learning or mugging up some book and passing the examination. I think this is what we need to focus on as we go forward. There are other different kinds of things that we can discuss, but I will be more interested now in hearing your opinions, because your generation is going to be impacted more by this kind of technological disruption. Thank you, Brandy. Over to you.
Thank you so much, sir, for this insightful session. It was extremely gripping and interesting at the same time. I personally had an amazing time listening to you, and my mind has opened up to several challenging questions. And I'm sure it is the same for the other participants as well. I would like to open up the floor for questions and opinions right now. Sir, would you like the participants to unmute themselves and ask the
Yes.
question, or ask the questions in the chat box?
No, no, they can ask the question, right?
All right. So you can raise your hands, and one by one, I will call out your name. You can unmute and ask the questions or share your opinions with Sir.
So
I
now this question,
saw.
I will be interested
Yeah.
in listening what you think about this topic. What can be done about uh, making ourselves future ready as we go into the third decade of the 21st century.
My opinion.
Yours and other people.
Absolutely. I will definitely, I have a few points to say, but I would like others to say first. I saw a couple of. Hello? Am I audible?
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a couple of hand raises over here, but if you could raise your hands once more, I can call out your name and you can unmute yourself. Yes, Anup, you can unmute yourself and ask.
Yeah. Good afternoon, Abhinav sir. Anup here. I'm a research scholar at Delhi School of Economics. So basically, regarding my opinion, as we have entered in the fourth industrial revolution era, so basically, the thing what I think that we can leverage the skill. Like there will be always a human labor force in different sort of industries, but the thing is we can leverage our potential. Like we can leverage our skill sets through AI and to the technologies we are coming through, like cutting blended the sector of finance. We can sort of the blended finance, or we can say about the crypto or the decentralized finance. So there will be always a enhancement of skills in the human labor force. There might be shortage of human labor. Typical we have seen that Twitter last year after the takeover of Elon Musk, that the labor force has come down like 80% of the laid off of the people there. But every time in the core sector of any industry, there will be chance of human workforce, and we have to like our generation have to like enhance that skill like through that AI and the data and model we are in, like, they're saying the data is the new gold. So in the field of data science or in the field of AI, you can leverage that thing. And in terms of my question, I'd like to ask that uh, in the sector of finance and the sustainability, in the intersection of finance, ESG is become more sort of a kind of uh, word, the buzzword, we can say, environmental, social, and governance parameters, ESG metrics. So, what would be the role of ESG metrics? What would be the role of AI and the crypto, or the decentralized finance, DeFi? What would be the role in the sector of blended finance in terms of energy transition or in terms of investment, like green bonds or impact investment? Like there are people who are doing that metrics and ESG writing for the corporates, but there is very chance that AI can take over that also. There are many AI, there are many websites right now which are doing that thing also. So what would be the role of AI in that sector specifically?
Well, not sure I got your question very clearly, but you were talking about. But I just want to make a point regarding the ESG norms, the environment, social, and what is that governance. Now, my personal opinion is I'm completely against these ESG norms because first of all, we don't know who is making them, right? Who are the people who are enforcing these norms on the corporates through different kinds of financial means, like you say, green bonds and all. And most of these norms are basically tailored or they are made according to the economic structure or the needs of the first world countries, right? Maybe Scandinavian countries or the Germany and so on. I'm completely against Indian corporates or Indian government giving any space to these ESG norms because they're highly problematic, right? They have started interfering in your economic process, not directly, but through these kind of norms that you have to follow this environmental law, you have to follow this kind of governance model, and the governance model can bring different kinds of social demands which you are seeing in the Western countries, that is being imported into India to the corporate sector. I'm completely against it, and I should completely reject it because first of all, we don't know who is making it, what is the legitimacy of these norms. Then again, are they suited to India's concerns or not? Every country is different. How you do business is different. How do you deal with your social structure is different. I don't think there's a need for that kind of uniformity that is being pushed through these different kinds of diversity norms and governance norms and so on. Now, the coming to the role of the AI in this thing, not really sure because the AI is also prone to the biases, because the recommendations the AI will give you, or the recommendations or the suggestions that your the Chat GPT gives you, depends on the coding of those softwares, and the coding is done by basically the human beings. So the cultural norms, the biases, the what they think, their opinions definitely find a way in the coding of these artificial intelligence softwares that we're dealing with today. So that there's again, there's a huge problem. There's a huge moral question. There's a question of ethics. There's a question of how legitimate they are. There's a question of how appropriate they are. These kind of norms which can be taken over by AI. In fact, Niti Aayog few years back released a whole document, I think, on the ethics of artificial intelligence. Maybe a good idea. You can go and search for that document. It was a very long document, and read what India is thinking on this topic in detail.
Thank you very much.
Yes, anybody else who would like to share their opinion with Sir or ask a question? If anybody would like to do so, you can raise your hand and unmute yourself and ask ahead. I guess there was one question from Anu. I have one question for you, sir, and that is, so we know that like AI and automation, like it is continuing to shape and reshape our industries and job markets. So, what kind of strategies can businesses or policymakers or myself being a law student should like keep my make myself aware of to ensure a kind of smooth transition for workers from traditional employment to the gig economy while still maintaining a focus on the job security and the workers' rights and liabilities at the same time.
I think that's a very interesting question, because, and it was not one question, Vani, it was several questions together. Uh, One thing is that, I think how education has been done in India now. I was teaching in SRCC, and, the people were coming with 99% and whatnot in that college. But it was very disappointing, to teach those students, because they really do not have, barring few, really do not have very good command over language or skills or understanding. Now, this is another problem, because school education in India over the last 10 years or something, of not 10 years, I think it started from 2005 when Kapil Sibal was the education minister. The dilution of the school education and the grade inflation. Now, suddenly everyone is getting, what not, 99%, 98%. The schools, we don't really know how you can be so brilliant that you're getting 100 out of 100 in English or in Hindi or in history. Forget the maths and the physics. Now, that kind of school education has really harmed the people. We had these students coming with 99%. They could not write 2 pages answer. They were maybe good in mathematics. I was teaching economics, so, but they could not really write 2 pages coherent answer in macroeconomics, when, Anup can understand, when the variables are not one to one, there can be a different kind of dynamics. Now we have to focus more on the basic learning. This is a point I said. What forms the basic learning? The proficiency in the language, right? And trust me, the people in India, really are not very good with the language. You read their applications, you read the documents they write. I know in many of the organizations they say, okay, we simply throw the paper because they can't write proper proposals. So the command over language is the first thing. Second is the mathematics. Mathematics is going to be essential for everyone. It doesn't matter what you want to do in life, right? If you're having going to have massive technological disruption and the AI and all something, the coding is one area that you have to master. You have to be into it. Even if you are trying to become a lawyer, I would suggest learn basic coding. I'm not saying go into advanced coding or not. Learn basic coding. Be good at mathematics. Be good at logic, right? I think if we can train our children in the school in these four things in the initial years of their schooling, I think they can master and they can take up any discipline in the future and master it, right? Even if that discipline changes in the future. Because what you have the basic of the logic, mathematics, language, you have the basic understanding of the thing, you have the capacity to learn and analyze. You can cope up with any kind of skills which may be required in the future. But the problem is that most of the people in India are not really trained in these things. The second question was also very interesting. That was regarding the labor laws and the rights of the labor. That is a big thing, Uh, the labor laws were, uh, they dependent on the capacity of the working class as the vote bank, and also the policies of the government. It's not necessary that everything was demanded by the workers. Lots of things were also instituted by the policymakers. Now once you really don't have this factory system anymore, or that there's a fragmentation of work, the rise of the gig economy, so the even the laborers and the people, the workers, are also not inhabiting a same space. You are perhaps sitting in your home, or you're sitting in somewhere in Nagaland, other person is sitting in Gujarat, some person is sitting in some other country, and you're working together in a company. How do you come together to do collective bargaining? That is becoming a challenge, right? And gig economy really have a huge issue. Best example is your Ola and Uber. The once you talk to these drivers, and they will tell you the long hours they work. There is really no capacity to bargain with the Uber or Ola. They can uh, hike their commissions that the Ola Uber can take, and it's your choice whether you want to work or not. Because if you're not working, someone else will work. Because these drivers are not employee, of the Ola or Uber. They're simply what they term as the partners. So that's a very nice way to bypass all the labor legislation and commitments. So the question of social security for these people is very, very problematic. How do you ensure that is a grievance redressal? That is also becoming very problematic. What we need is a new kind of model. Perhaps there was one interesting proposal that perhaps the Uber should be taxed. Like I think it was in London or somewhere, and from that tax that should be a separate kind of a tax, not the usual tax. A social security fund should be created for the drivers working for them. So these kind of innovative solutions need to be found out, because while there is a fragmentation of work and difficulty of the labor, for the labor to come together and do collective bargaining, and the internet and the communication is also open to create wider networks of networking, and put on or maybe to have a larger number of people bargaining with the companies and the government of getting their points across. In G20, we also have a labor 20, right? So labor 20 specifically deals with these kind of issues that we are discussing: social security in the new economy, and rights of the laborers in the new economy, and different kinds of other issues relating to the labor. But again, I think it will require lots of political innovation, also require lots of economic innovation, and certainly the lawyers will have a very important role to play in structuring the entire thing.
Definitely, sir, and thank you for that elaborative answer so much. Does anybody have any more opinions or questions to share with sir? If you have, you can raise your hand and ask, and I can take your name up. All right. I guess there are no questions from our participants as of yet. I have one more small, it's very small questions. You spoke about the income inequality, which is still, I mean, very much prevalent in our country right now, and which can further enhance with the AI and digitization coming up. So, how can workers from all sorts of backgrounds, all varied backgrounds here, if I mention, can benefit from the upcoming technological innovations in this world of work that is lying ahead of us?
Well, really, I don't have a clear answer for that, Rani, because that's a question which is very futuristic. I think if we don't act now when it comes to the policy and investing in our future generation to become ready for the technological disruption, we will be in a tough spot. Right? That's all I can say. We're going to be very, very tough spot. You already see that. Lots of people with the degrees in the country, and very small number of India actually access the higher education. I think, I don't not sure what is the percentage, but I think it's not even 20%, right? So maybe much less. So you already have so many people with the degrees, the graduate degree, the master degrees, and so degrees. The India produces very large number of engineers. Most of them are simply unemployable. That's a hard reality. That's a harsh fact. Very few people are actually employable. So on the other side, interestingly, the companies complain or the industry complains that they do not find workers in India. They do not find the people with the requisite skills and capacity that they want. So there's a huge labor market mismatch. And this is not a new problem in India. Even in the 40s, if you read the Dr. Ambedkar, he was the labor secretary of the Viceroy. So he has this problem of rehabilitating the soldiers who were mobilized for the World War II into different kinds of industry. So he also made certain remarks, in the speeches of Ambedkar on the education in India, and he was also saying that education, what we're teaching the kids in the school or the students in the school, is completely useless when it comes to the real world and the real jobs market. So the Ambedkar solution was that the syllabus in the colleges and the universities should actually be linked very strongly with the market forces, especially for the people and the students who are coming in the training centers on the formal education from the socially weaker backgrounds. Say, if you're coming from a socially weaker background, maybe from a scheduled caste or some village, some remote village, you may not need to master English literature or history or something. You're better off learning some meaningful skill, the employment oriented skill, which can give you immediate job and secure your future and your family's future. So I think Ambedkar's suggestion of having greater synergy with the industry and the universities, especially when it comes to the syllabus design and what is being taught in the schools and the colleges, is very much relevant, in fact more relevant today than ever before.
Right. Thank you so much, sir. And I completely agree with you. The transferable skills that one actually acquires through different uh, jobs or through different activities is very important for us to kind of go ahead and get ahead and be prepared for the future economy that is coming ahead of us. Um, I would like to now proceed with the. Yeah, yes, Anup, you do have a question.
Yeah, I have one more questions. It's about the utilization of AI in the field of law. Like we have recently seen that Supreme Court also have issued a guideline regarding utilizing AI in the small cases as an interlocutor or as an mediator. So, what would be the ethical standards of utilizing AI in the field of law in terms of judgments? Even the Chat GPT, even the most updated version GPT-4, the Bard has sort of these sort of LLMs, large language models, doesn't have the jurisprudence in the legal. They always said we don't have the expertise in the field of legal jurisprudence or the policy making. So what would be the challenges of utilizing it? Like India has adopted the DeFi, decentralized finance, in the form of CBDC, regulated it. The 2 to 3 years was a hullabaloo regarding that. So now we are transforming in the field of AI. So it's not in the legal jurisprudence. There is a ethical guideline, as you have said, sir. But how India should approach integrating AI not only in the field of law but also in the field of corporates or economics, this sort of field.
Well, I think as we proceed, these kind of regulations and structures will fall into place, because you always see that when the changes happen, the government and the judiciary, they come up with different kind of regulation. And I am hopeful that the judiciary in the future will do its core job instead of interfering in the work of the legislature or the executive. Unfortunately, that is the case in India. The Supreme Court, especially, has this very, I would say, uh, uh, not bad, I would say, because judges might get angry, but a very problematic habit of interfering in the branches of legislature and the executive. I think they should focus on their core work and dealing with these kind of questions more and more, rather than playing to the gallery through the PILs and different kinds of comments and suo motu notice on different things, even in something almost military conflicts and other things. So I think uh, we hope that you people, those who are in the law, when you grow up, when you become big lawyers, judges, and all, you will focus more on the core judicial work, coming up with different kinds of structures, possible alternatives to these kind of problems. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you
sir.
so
Thank
much,
you, sir.
sir. Thank you, sir. Yes. Now, I would like to go ahead with the thank you and the acknowledgement note. As we bring this enlightening webinar on future of work in the digital age, gig economy, AI, and role of education and training to a close, I stand here with a very big heart of gratitude and a mind buzzing with new insights. First and foremost, I would like to express my heartfelt thanks to our esteemed speaker. Thank you so much, sir. Your expertise, your passion, and your willingness to share your knowledge have left a great impact on all of us. The thought provoking discussion and the valuable perspective which you have provided on this topic is both eye opening and inspiring at the same time. To our distinguished participants, I extend my sincerest appreciation. Your engagement and your thoughtful consideration to spend time with us have been instrumental in making this session truly interactive and enriching. I would also like to acknowledge the efforts of the Amicus Curiae team for scheduling such an informative session and incredibly grateful for the commitment in delivering a top notch experience. In closing, I encourage each and every one of you to continue exploring, learning, and collaborating. The digital age presents us with boundless possibilities and challenges at the same time. And with the right mindset and determination, we can thrive in this upcoming gig economy and leverage AI while ensuring that education and training remains the cornerstones of our success. Thank you once again for your unwavering support and participation. We look forward to welcoming you to future events as we continue this journey of discovery and growth all together. Best wishes to every one of you.
Thank you everyone. It was a pleasure.
Thank you so much, sir, for being with us.